Hello my friends, this is Maltanan and welcome to AE Tuts. Today I'll be showing you how to create a DNA animation inside of After Effects using only Trapcode Form. And this is how it looks. Pretty cool, huh? There are a few reasons why this is a good material for a tutorial, other than, of course, that it looks awesome. And one of the reasons is that this actually requires us to use something that is called layer maps, and we really have to plan carefully how we use them. This might seem simple at the beginning, but let me just show you what kind of pitfalls you might fall into when you try to recreate this effect without careful planning. Your first instinct might be to create a custom particle, which I'm going to do right now, just to show you why that is a bad approach. So let me just create a custom particle here, new solid, make comp size, that's right, and let's just make this vertical bar, something like that, and duplicate this layer, reset transform, add a circle, just like that, make it smaller, move it up, and duplicate it, change transfer mode to normal so we can see both circles at the same time. And there we go, right? So only thing left to do is to turn those layers into 3D layers and parent this one to this one, open up rotation, and here we go, right? But right away you can see a problem. This gets way too close to the camera and that doesn't look very good. To actually make it look better, we would have to make this comp bigger. So let's make it a square, 300 by 300. That looks much better. But still, it's a pretty huge particle, right? And if you're familiar with how particular or form works, you know that this wouldn't be enough if we just clicked here on the rotation and just created the keyframes like 5 times maybe, and then use that as a custom particle. Let me show you why that is. Let's create a new comp, 600 by 300, new solid. I'm just going to go very quickly because that's not the focus of this tutorial, right? This is the wrong way. This is the way that wouldn't work. Form. So I don't want to focus too much on this. I want to show you how to do it correctly so that you can use it in your work. So I'm just making a basic setup here. Let's make this 500 by 200, so 100 pixels smaller than the actual comp size. And let's decrease the amount of particles in Z to 0, on X to whatever, 7, and particles in Y, we only need 1, correct? Because each of these particles is going to be replaced by our custom particle. So let's just go here and choose custom and choose the layer, comp 1. We gotta increase the size so we can actually see this. And okay, that seems fine, right? They're rotating and stuff, but remember, those are huge particles, that's first. Second of all, we don't really see them when they're pretty flat to the camera, and they're all rotating at the same time. We should have some kind of offset, and you can't really do that using form or particular. I mean, you could, but, why bother? There's a better way to do it. So let me just show you what that is. I'm just gonna clear my project here, and we can start from scratch. Let's just tidy it up and create new comp. Let's call this one DNA. Is going to be our final comp. And first off, let's create a new solid, make it black, or it doesn't really matter. And this is going to be our form layer. And first of all, let's apply Trapcode Form. I'm going to use pretty similar setup to the one you just saw. And just in case if you're not familiar with Trapcode Form, I'm going to show you what it does. I'm going to create a simple 3D camera here. And as you can see, this is the default setup of Form. It basically created like 3 planes made of particles. And if you take a look at the setup, base, form, we've got a base form of 200 by 200, which is exactly this, width and height, and also size in Z. So basically we have a cube if you would look at it like that. If I only increase the amount of particles in Z, which is going to increase the amount of 3D planes that we have, you can see that it's an actual cube. But right now we have quite a lot of particles, so we don't want to do that. But we can decrease the amount of particles, maybe 30 by 30 by 30, and that looks much better. So this is what form does. If you're familiar with particular, form is a extended version of the grid emitter in Trapcode particular. But that's already too much information, right? So let's just reset it and reset the camera as well. Transform reset, and let's just set it up the way we need it. So I don't need any particles on the Z because I just want to have one single plane. And I'm going to increase the amount of the size in Z to 500, Y to 200. I can leave it like that. And our comp is 600 by 300. So this is actually 100 pixels smaller. Size in Z, that doesn't really matter. And let's just decrease the amount of particles in X. And each of these lines is going to be our one segment of this DNA code. So I guess we can start with something like that. And we can also increase the particles on the Y, just that we have a straight line. It looks like a straight line, but it's actually made of 142 small particles. Okay, so this is our basic setup, and take a look what we can do with a simple twist parameter. Now we're getting somewhere, right? So the only thing we need is a way to actually make those lines look like those DNA elements. I would really like to know how they're called in English. Let's just go ahead and do that. So let's just create a new composition. Let's call it size. Size. And the way we're going to achieve that effect is through layer maps. We're going to create a composition that is going to drive the size of each of those small particles that those vertical lines are made of. So I'm just going to create a solid here, a black solid, and then another one on top of that. Let's just duplicate it, apply ramp effect to it. We can actually make it a little bit smaller, something like that. And I'm going to apply colorama. Everything's going to be clear in a second. And right now, colorama changed our ramp from black to white to this full spectrum of colors. And what we need to do is to change the spectrum so it's a grayscaled Solarise gray. See, so we basically translated that ramp to a different ramp right now. But what we need is we want to have this part white, then suddenly going to like a dark gray, and then right about here to white again. So let's just do it. I'm going to double click on this color here, change it to white. I'm going to double click on this one and just make a dark gray color, maybe 70, 70, and 70. That should be fine. I'm just going to put it right here. Then create another one, 70, 70, 70. More or less. But I would like to have a little bit more of the pure white. So I'm going to move this one across and add another one white in here. Okay, that looks okay, I guess, more or less. And I think we need to blur this edge a little bit so we have a soft transition to black. So let's just go here and add fast blur and change it to vertical and just add a small blur amount like 3, maybe 4, and that should be fine. And right now what this map is going to do, it's going to translate the grayscale values to the size parameter of the particles. So I'm going to move to our DNA comp and drop this size comp in here. And just so we can see this a little bit better, I'm going to increase the size of the form to the actual comp size right now, so that everything overlays. And let's make the size of the particles bigger so we can see this very clearly. And I'm going to drill down layer maps, and here in the size parameter I'm going to choose our size pre-comp. Oh, sorry for that, those things are twirling up and down. I think it's a thing with After Effects CS4, unfortunately. Hope they'll fix it soon. And once again, I've set the size layer map to our size comp, and now I have to define on which axes this layer map affects our particles. So I'm going to say X and Y, which is basically this and this, right? See what's happening there? Of course, we don't need this layer to be turned on, but I just left it on so we can see exactly what's going on. So white color is 100% of the size, and the size is 8. So basically, particles that appear on this pure white color are size 8. So I'm just going to pump this up a little bit. And it still doesn't look much like a circle, and it should be close to a circle. So I'm going to go to our size comp and just play with the colorama, narrow it down just a little bit like that. And like that, and maybe move those two a little bit closer. And those two a little bit closer as well. You could, of course, build this map using multiple layers and masks and feathers and stuff, but I just like to keep things simple, and simple for me means less layers. So that's the way I'm doing it. Okay, that looks better. So let's just turn this off and change our size of the form again. Okay, that looks nice. Let's see if we don't have too many particles on the Y. Maybe we can decrease it. Increasing, 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 and that's just about right. Let's leave it at 80. Nice round number. And where is the disperse and twist? Yes. Take a look at this. Okay, this is cool. This is cool. So the only question is, how do we animate this? Because obviously we can't animate the twist because it only twists it more and more and more and more. And we would like this to be rotating and twisting. Like we have the constant twist, but it rotates, like flows. And we can actually do that using rotation on the X in the base form. Sweet, huh? Nice. And the best thing about this setup is that we can increase the amount of particles on the X. So we can really tweak the look on the fly. We really don't need to worry about anything. We can just make changes as we go and see what fits. So I actually like this look. And I think the amount of particles is right on. So let's just animate this. And we could simply create 2 keyframes, like here and here, maybe like, I don't know, 3 revolutions or something. But this method has a small pitfall to it. Since those are 2 keyframes, the speed of rotation is constant, right? So we can actually use a very simple expression. You know, I'm an expression geek, so I'm going to show you one of my favorite expressions to animate rotation, evolution, and stuff like that, which is time multiplied by some value. Let's say 100 for now. This time keyword actually corresponds to current time in your timeline. So right now it's 0. At this point it's 2 seconds, so we can see it's 2 seconds multiplied by 100 gives us 200, more or less. Here, 200, and so on and so forth. So the best thing about this is that you can change the length of your composition, maybe to 30 seconds. And the only thing you need to do is to extend the layer. Of course, in this case, you gotta extend the size comp as well, but we could just make it longer than we need to start off. Let's make it like 10 minutes, right? Whatever. It doesn't really matter that much. Oosh. Okay. And the problem is fixed. Just like that. You can change the length of your comp on the fly. If you would use keyframes and you actually like the speed that you had, you would have to figure out what to set the rotation to in this, so in this place in time. You know, it would just take a few extra steps that you can just skip if you plan for it, you know, ahead of time, right? So let's just trim it back to 10 seconds. It's easier to work with. And let's just stylize this a little bit. We've got our elements set up, so you can actually play a little bit with the camera and color and stuff like that. So let's just go to form and go down to particle, and let's just choose a nice color. I want it to be bluish, so let's make it like something like that. Nice round number, 225 for the hue. Saturation about, I don't know, 40. And brightness. See how nice? Okay, very nice. Very nice. Okay, let's make it like that. And if you were looking closely, you've noticed that you're working in 32 bits per channel. And I do have a good reason for that. Even though Form doesn't work with 32 bits, After Effects built-in Glow does. And it really works well in 32 bits and with particles. Let's apply Glow. And just play a little bit with the settings. Okay, that's sort of nice, but it's way too intense. So we can actually create another layer map for form, and this one would be for the opacity. And since we've got our size comp already set up, and we obviously need the same sizes and everything, we can just simply put it in a new comp, call this opacity, and make it a little bit darker. So let's just create a black solid on top of it and just fade it out like something like this, 60%. Again, one nice round number. And let's put this comp in here, turn it off. And using the same technique, we're going to say color and alpha. We're going to pick our opacity map and say that we want to translate the lightness of that layer to the alpha channel of our particles. And we wanted to do it over X and Y axes. Better. So maybe we can increase the size of the particles. Nah, not really. Play with the glow. Nah. So maybe we can just increase the opacity just a little bit, maybe 50. Okay, that's better, but not as good as I'd like it to 40. Okay, that's more or less okay, but we can do more. Let's go to the rendering settings and set it to full render plus depth of field. And we're going to turn the depth of field on our camera. Oh, it's turned on by default. And let's just pump up the aperture and blur amount. And now let's just set the focus plane exactly at the particles. You know what? I'm gonna turn the glove off for now, because it's easier to work with that way. And maybe I'll change something with the particles as well, because they are too blurred at this point. Maybe let's just increase the size, the amount of particles on the Y. That makes it look a little bit better. And again, let's play with the focus plane. Okay. Right now we can really focus on the front particles. I've pumped it up really high so we can kind of see what we're doing in here. Okay, that's it. Now we can drop the aperture a little bit, and we can also try a nice trick. And what focus distance is 503. So remember that number, because right now we're going to go to visibility and we're going to set far vanish and far start fade options to, what was it, 503, and let's make this one 700. Nice, maybe 600. No, that's a little bit too much. Something like this. Okay, that's not bad. But still, I don't see why are those particles so blurred out. Let's just try something. Changing the size. Okay, that's better. That's better. Nice. I think that we can even make the aperture higher and the blur level higher as well. Just play around with it so we can get a nice look. And also change the far vanish parameter so that we get the particles to be really, really dark at that side. At the other side of the DNA chain. Okay, that's cool. That's really cool. And since we've got a nice opacity map, I think we can play a little bit with it as well. And let's just try linear wipe. Linear wipe. So we can kind of fade it on and off. Let's set a keyframe in here, move 10 frames forward, and set a keyframe in here as well. So it does something like that. And let's put CC light sweep on top of that. We don't need any edge thickness. We want it to be straight. Intensity. Yes, but now we have a problem. This black solid is affecting our glow, our light sweep, and I don't want that. But I do want it to be darker, so we can actually do it in a different way. Let me just turn this light sweep off for now and linear wipe off for now as well, so we don't get confused. And we can use solid composite to darken it up. I'm gonna choose a black color, but I'll do it later on. If I turn the source opacity down, I get the white color, the color in here. So if I'm gonna change it to black, and I'm gonna make the source opacity 60%, I get exactly that. But then, when I put the light sweep on top of that, we got a pure white, so that's cool. And now we only have to synchronize this linear wipe with our light sweep. So let's just move it to 600. And as it moves away, we want it to be 0. So right now it goes, oh, sorry, didn't set the keyframes. Again, 600 and 0. So now it goes exactly at the same speed as the transition completion goes. But there is a small problem. It stops at this point, right? And we would like it to continue its movement at the same speed in that direction, so it actually goes off screen. So we can try adding another keyframe and kind of guessing what the value should be. Or, again, we can use a simple expression. And this expression is loop out and type continue. And that's it. Haha, sweet. What this expression does, it always takes last 2 keyframes and estimates the motion based on those 2 keyframes and simply continues the same motion after the keyframes are gone. So that's exactly what we need. Pretty sweet. Okay, so let's just go ahead and see how that looks. Haha, particles light up and they stay like that. Very sweet. But if you notice, they rotate in a different direction than they actually show up. So what we need to do is we need to reverse the rotation. So instead of doing time multiplied by 100, we're going to multiply it by minus 100. Okay, very nice. And I got a nice trick for you, another one. Imagine that. Once we've got everything set up, let's just check it with the blur. Too much. Okay, radius. Okay, that's nice. Okay, I like it. So where was I? Oh yeah, I got a nice trick for you. Once you're happy with your looks and setup and everything, you want to play a little bit with the speed of animation and stuff like that. And since we've got this driven with expressions, you can easily change the number in here, right? You can make it 500 and that way it will go much faster. Really fast, actually. But you don't really want to always go in and change this parameter. And you don't want to create a slider, like the separate parameter somewhere that you have to go into. You would really like to use this, since you got it in your form setup in here in rotation, right? So there is actually a way to do that. We can multiply the time value by the actual value of the rotation. So we do it by typing in value, which refers to the parameter that we're changing with expressions. So right now it gives us time multiplied by 0. So in other words, there will be no rotation at all. If I set it to 100, it will be time multiplied by 100. So again, at 2 seconds marker, it's going to be equal to 200. And if I see, this, when it's red, it says this is the value after applying the expression. But when you edit it, the original value is actually 100. So that's a neat tip right there. And since I needed this to be a reverse number, I'm just going to type in negative 100. And this gives us negative 200. So pretty sweet. And you can change this parameter on the fly without having to go into the expressions. You can just twirl this up and never worry about it again. Just type in minus 300 and see if that works. Nah, that's too fast. I think that even 100 was too fast. So let's make it negative 50 and just leave it like that. So my friends, I guess that's it. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. My name is Maltanen. Make sure to check out my website www.maltanen.com for more free After Effects tutorials. Thanks for tuning in. See you soon. Happy After Effecting.